All right, thanks, folks. Back for round two. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County and the City Club of Central Oregon, welcome to the Redmond Mayoral Candidate Forum. My name is still Tim Trainer. I'm the editor of the Redmond Spokesman. Thanks again to candidates who are participating. We appreciate the gravity of running for office. Candidates in this race are Ed Fitch, Zwicker, and Charles Baer. Please hold your applause and refrain from comments during the forum. Candidates will have 1 minute for opening remarks and 1.5 minutes to answer each question. These questions have been submitted by the public and screened by the League of Women Voters. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. For opening statements, we have randomly selected the order, and the order of who answers each question first will be rotated. We'll go the same as before. Kat, you'll start with a 1 minute opening statement.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure, can you hear me? Very good. Well, obviously I'm Kat Zwicker and I am running for mayor. I had decided a little earlier this year that basically a third of the votes last time were for Ed, and there was 2/3 of Redmond that might be curious about a different candidate. And I have a little bit different idea about the way I think Redmond should be communicating with the public and with our transparency of office. You won't find a lot of difference in our goals for council, I'll be honest, but you will find a difference in, I think, how we bring them forward and make sure everybody is included. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Charles, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Charles Baer. I'm running for mayor of Redmond, Oregon. Please vote for me. Thank you. If I'm elected mayor, I will create a program, and this program will be entirely transparent. It'll be run and owned and operated entirely by the Oregon State government, and it will be run out of the Central Oregon Community College, the Redmond branch, and it will cost the taxpayer zero. It'll be done entirely on private donations and volunteer work, and it will create a cryptocurrency for the Oregon State government, and it will create a search engine for the Oregon State government, and it will create a social network for the Oregon State government, and it will create all of these things, and it will help the Oregon State government to move forward online and increase its presence, not just in Oregon, but in the entire world. And thank you very much.
First, I want to thank all those who helped on the campaign. I think all three of us are very glad that it's about over. And we'll look forward to November 6th, even by as much as November 5th. Over the next few years, Redmond will be undergoing its most significant transformation in its history. We're expecting about $1 billion of investment from public, nonprofit, private developers, businesses, etc. That's going to put a lot of stress in our community in terms of transportation, infrastructure, social services, etc. I have a track record over the past few years of building coalitions to reach solutions that will help the community. I think that track record and my ability to do that will serve Redmond in very well in the next few years. Now I'd ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Baer, we'll start with you with the next question. You have 1.5 minutes. What is your top priority if elected, and what in your background makes you able to accomplish that?
Okay, so my top priority is to bring new ideas to the government in Redmond. And I think it's time that the government in Redmond and in Oregon change with the times and stay ahead of the times from a technology perspective. And I've been in Oregon this entire millennium, and I've been in Central Oregon for since 2007. And I've been saying this stuff since the last millennium. And the #1 priority, in my opinion, is environmentalism. And I've been saying that over and over and over again, and I'll keep saying it because I believe in it. And I believe that the people of Redmond want to not only have a great town, which they do, but also to help other people, not only in Oregon and in America, but across the world, with new ideas and environmentally conscious ideas. And I think we've got a great opportunity to do that. And I'm very excited to be able to talk about these things. And thank you very much.
I guess top priority is making sure that we have the right infrastructure to meet the needs of a growing population. Transportation is key. As you know, we're going to have a new park and rec facility on 35th Street. We absolutely have to have a traffic light there before that becomes operational. We're looking at a roundabout in Helmholtz and 126. We're having a wetlands project to make sure we have adequate sewer for the next 20 years. And we'll also be able to recharge the groundwater from that wetland system. On water, I think we've been very successful in challenging the state on getting additional water for the city for the next 20 years, and we need to work on water policy for our Deschutes Basin in the next century, actually, to make sure that cities get the priority it needs to meet the growing population that we're going to have. We have all kinds of other issues, homelessness, affordable housing, all those are equally important and need our attention and our resources to make sure that those happen. I think with the council that we have now, and I hope to have the same kind of council in the future, we've been able to accomplish a lot so far, and there's much more to do, and I think we'll get there.
So I'm not going to be terribly different. I think our most important priority is managing our growth. We have grown so rapidly, and that does put strain on all of our infrastructure. It puts strain on our housing, as we've all seen. So for me, I think the first thing to do is work on the housing piece. We really need to work with our partners and create housing across all income levels and all streams. And that creates the cycle that allows you to go from rent to first home to second to retirement home, and it cycles around as people move from housing type to housing type. In building housing, obviously, we're going to have to look at our roads and our water and our infrastructure. Just as the mayor said, we have some of those projects aligned. So the transportation is going to be the second biggest issue with getting funding and having the ability to create safe roads to Redmond. In doing that, we are going to do some lobbying that I'm aware of with our legislative partners. There's just not a lot that ODOT is willing to do at this time for our major roads, which is obviously 126 and 97 going through town. And then we've all talked about transportation safety. And then water conservation is big. That's not going to change. So I think those are our things: infrastructure, housing, anything related to growth. And I think working on those will be the most important priorities.
Thank you. We'll start with Mayor Fitch. Should Redmond fund Core 3? That's the emergency training and response center planned up towards the airport. Should Redmond fund Core 3? And if so, how much? Is this a good use of Redmond funds?
The short answer is no. We are putting $750,000 into 21st Street, which will access Core 3, but it'll also provide safe access to Oasis Village, to the transitional housing that is planned by Mountain View Fellowship, and also to a managed camp north of there, so that we can have a safe location for those people now living in northeast Redmond on the streets and on county property to relocate to. But Core 3 has a lot of different funding sources, both state and federal and nonprofit. We're working with the EPA now on a $20 million grant application. We're going to be asking the legislature for $15 million, and I think we'll get it. So Core 3 is an emergency training facility on the east side, but it's also going to be the relief center for major disasters, particularly the Cascadia event, when Western Oregon basically gets decimated. Redmond's been selected as a relief site for all of Western Oregon because of the airport, because of the fairgrounds, and because of Core 3. So we have a lot to do. We have a lot of responsibility as a community for the whole state there, but we're not going to put the city's money into it. There are other sources for that.
I'm definitely in agreement with the mayor. We should not be funding Core 3. That is a state and federal emergency management project, but we should be partners because it does impact everything we do in this area. We are going to be the major location for a statewide disaster management. It would impact our airport, our fairgrounds. So I think our involvement at that level is critical. I agree with the infrastructure to create safe access off of 126 for both Oasis Village and the Mountain View Community Development transitional housing. So I think those things are critical. The other thing that I think is really important is when we're looking at partners with Core 3 is that we insist that they create redundant systems, bring in alternative power sources and things that don't put a strain on the ones in Redmond. So they need to be looking at their growth in a way separate from how we plan for our growth. Because as we learned from our wildfires, when we lose power, they have to go fuel the tankers in Klamath Falls because they don't have backup generators from the Forest Service here at this military base. So that's probably the biggest thing I think we need to do at Core 3.
I would agree with Ed and Kat. Core 3 is a state and federal issue, so they can pay for it and they're gonna pay for it. Now, let's talk about this neighborhood, the northeast of Redmond. Right now, we've got Oasis Village there, and it seems to me the long-term goal or program for Oasis Village is just to continue to expand and get larger and larger and larger indefinitely. And it seems like that's just gonna happen. And I think if you look long-term on this, like if we go forward in the future 30 years and we go to that area in 30 years, it's just gonna be housing and apartments and maybe industrial and, you know, shops. So the Core 3 is gonna move east, maybe even into Crook County or whatever. And so we're just talking about the next 10 or 15 years. And so I think that we need to look long-term on this and acknowledge that Core 3 is gonna move east, and so is Oasis Village, and see and come up with a plan, a long-term plan for both of those places.
Thank you. Councilor Zwicker, we'll start with you. As short-term rentals increase amid rising housing costs in Redmond, would you support regulations or limits to the number of Airbnb-type rentals in the city?
I'm going to give the unpopular answer. I do think we need to look at how short-term rentals impact our community. I in no way, shape, or form am comfortable dictating somebody's personal property rights, but when you can make more money renting your house out for 3 days a week than you can renting it out in a month, it impacts our available affordable housing. So I think to be responsible, to have restrictions in place so we don't create all these rentals that are not managed and overseen and sometimes often don't pay their rental taxes to the city, we do need to have some sort of restrictions in place, yes.
Charles?
I agree. Short-term rentals are not a good thing for the community, especially a community that has a serious housing shortage. If you look at Bend, they really are getting rid of short-term rentals. And other parts of the country are as well. And I think that's a good thing because we've got corporations buying houses and, you know, and when you have a severe housing shortage like we do here in Redmond, that just doesn't make any sense to anybody. And so we should, short-term rentals are not a good idea, and we should limit them severely.
Well, this is a first because all three of us agree. I do think short-term rentals are a problem. They compromise the integrity of neighborhoods. You never know who's next door when you're next to one. They've had significant problems with them in Bend. And I think as Kat and Charles have all indicated, they do affect affordable housing. So yeah, I do think they should be regulated so they don't have a significant impact on neighborhoods and on our community.
We'll start, Charles, with you, and it seems like a good time to answer this question after a three-way agreement. It says, you seem to agree on many issues. What is the major difference between you and your opponents? And why should the citizens of Redmond vote for you instead of those opponents?
Well, Ed and Kat have done a great job and are still doing a great job and will continue to do a great job. And I have the utmost respect for them. I think Redmond's very lucky to have these two working hard for them. And however, I am running for mayor because I do think I'm the best candidate. And I think I'm the best candidate for a few reasons. Some of them I've already talked about. I think it's time for us to step up and be leaders, not just in our community, but leaders for everyone, everywhere. And we need to be leaders on the tough issues. And we need to stand up and discuss the difficult problems that not only we're facing, but that everybody's facing. That's my opinion of political leadership. And that's always been my opinion of political leadership. And if you look at the political landscape right now, there's none of that. And there's been none of that my entire life. So it's time to step up and address every issue, especially the ones that are difficult to talk about and people don't want to talk about. Because that's what American politics is, okay? And so that's my opinion. Thank you.
One of the problems in an election season is you have to use the word I a lot. And I think all of us are sick of talking about ourselves because it's never about one individual. It's always a team effort. We have a great city council, we have a great administration, and we've been able to accomplish a lot. But there is a difference in terms of the mayor's position. And I think the experience I've had as city attorney, as a land use hearings officer, as former mayor, working on the Economic Development Commission, and having a private business, seeing the other side of the street, gives me the ability to understand where a lot of people are coming from, gives me the ability to come up with ideas on how to solve problems that can get fleshed out. Some are good. I think hopefully most are good. Some are not so good. But they all get fleshed out. And it's having those ideas to solve problems, to bring people together and address an issue. Oasis Village, we met twice a month for a year to make sure that happened. We're going to do the same on the managed camp. And I do think that experience and that knowledge makes a difference.
Again, I think that you'll find that at the heart, we all love our community. What would probably make me different from Charles is that I'm not an advocate for marijuana and shrooms for everyone everywhere, but there you go. And as far as Ed and I think that the biggest difference here is just approach and longevity. I feel like these projects are 5, 6, 10-year projects, and I have the bandwidth and the ability to be there for them. I have been in this community for 24 years. I have dealt with the housing crisis, the recession. I see people in the good and the bad. I help them through foreclosure. I help them through bankruptcy while they're trying to save their homes. I help them in divorce, and I help them in death. I am a problem solver, and I have been able to do this across the community just through housing advocacy alone, and I know I can bring this to the council. Other than that, I would say that I have a probably softer touch than Ed in some things, but I am a very diligent student of knowledge, and I study everything that we're talking about. So thank you.
Mayor, we'll start with you. Since Redmond uses groundwater for our water source, what should the city do to protect that source? And do we have enough to support future growth?
So about a year and a half ago, the Water Resources Department told the city they were going to deny our application for more groundwater. And so we had to roll up our sleeves, work with our legislative delegation, work with the governor's office, discovered that Water Resources had not followed the law in many respects. And so we were able to put a lot of pressure on the Water Resources Department, and now we're going to get an approved application that will serve Redmond for at least the next 20 years. We're also working closely with the governor's office, with Water Resources, for future policy on water, particularly here in the Deschutes Basin. And just a few weeks ago, we got an indication from the director of Water Resources that they're going to prioritize in their policies and advocate to the legislature and statutory reform that municipalities get priority of water. Because when you look at it, the Deschutes Basin, 90% of the people who live in our basin live inside cities. 85% of the economic activity in our basin happens inside cities. And that percentage is actually going to increase in the future. So yes, we will get the water we need, but we have a lot of hard work to make sure it happens.
So everything that Ed has said is factual, it's statistics, and it's true. These are the things we've been working on for the last 18 months as a council. And the policy piece is the important piece. And we have had a lot of meetings and a lot of effort go into working with our legislative lobbyists, with GIS, helps us with our water law, to really define what we can do in the future. And so through those meetings, we have ensured at least another 20 years of water rights that we have currently. And going forward, we're looking at those policy pieces. I think you heard from the council members that yes, we need to put conservation measures into effect throughout the city because we need to be good stewards of the resources we have. And being good stewards, we actually need to ask everybody who has a straw in that pool of water to be good stewards with us. So we'll have to be working outside of the city to have those partners come to the table and share some of the responsibility for what that looks like.
So water is the greatest resource we have in Central Oregon. And it's a very scarce commodity in lots of areas, but not here. We're sitting on 2,000 feet of lava for a water aquifer. That's a lot of fresh water. And we need, so we've got plenty of water, but we need to regulate it correctly. And, you know, what we need to do is reduce our water usage through zero-scaping and through maybe raising the rates a little bit to encourage people to reduce their water usage. And another thing I'd say about water, because this is such an important issue, is that we should transition when it comes to firefighting with fire retardant. We should transition to a non-toxic fire retardant because everything that goes into the aquifer stays there, and we don't need toxic chemicals in there. So, but water is a big deal everywhere, especially here. So we do need to be cognizant of that. But we also are very fortunate to have a lot of water.
Councilor Zwicker, we'll start with you. What could the city do to improve transportation options between Redmond and Bend and make travel safer for transportation?
There's not a lot we can do as far as road. That's an Oregon Department of Transportation. It's a state road. So 97 is the difficult sticky wicket that we're dealing with, is getting funding to improve transportation options. What we can do is work with our partners COIC and CET to increase alternative transportation bus routes, maybe make some parking areas that would be for people that want to carpool together. I know a lot of cities do that, where you can carpool from one town to the other for your jobs. It saves on gas, saves on traffic wear and tear, and kind of create a more robust system of conservation in that manner. But until we can give better transportation dollars, until we can create different offsets just between here and Bend, is a limited situation. What we can do is work on the area around Redmond and work with our partners to create traffic that needs to go around and not through, to offset some of the speed and safety issues through our own town. And we are doing that through the East Side Arterial, through changes coming down the way at Helmholtz, and trying to enforce some different routes for people to get to Bend or Prineville or Mandris a different way. Thank you.
Charles.
Well, in my opinion, we need a bypass on the east side from Terrebonne to Sun River, miles east of Redmond, miles east of Bend, and miles east of the airport. It needs to be maybe 6 lanes with light rail in the middle, and this will take a lot of time, maybe 20 years, and I think we can get the federal funds to do this, but I think the planning stages we need to start the planning stages now, because 97, you know, it's going to take us 15 years to get that if we start now, and we're going to need it a lot earlier than that. 97 is, it's you know, I mean, it's not going to be able to withstand the pressure that we're going to be putting on it. And some people would say it's not able to withstand the pressure we're putting on it right now, and it's not going to get better. And so I would definitely push for that. I push hard for that because it's inevitable, and the sooner we do it, the easier and the cheaper it will be, and the sooner we'll get it. And I'd also push for a big transportation hub right next to the airport too. But you'd have to have it like miles east of the airport soon to also allow for the airport to expand. Thank you.
I will say it's much more enjoyable going to Bend now with the Cooley Road improvements. But safety is a big issue on 97. We're not going to be creating another highway. And so what we've been talking to ODOT about, given their limited resources, is doing more of those concrete barriers between both lanes of traffic north and south. When you go down to Bend and you see those concrete barriers like just south of Deschutes Junction and then now at the Cooley Road change, they do give a much bigger sense of feeling of safety and they avoid the head-on collisions that have occurred in the past. But ODOT is a problem. They have everything at a $1.5 billion project or budget, and that's only for maintenance. And they're even going to be short on that. They have no money, absolutely $0 for road improvements or projects. So there is going to be a transportation package with the legislature. It's going to be a lot of people fighting for just a few dollars. We're hopeful we'll get the money for 35th and Highland and Hamilton 126. But transportation and providing alternate routes for transportation to 97 and to 126 are going to be critical going forward because we cannot rely on ODOT like we used to in the past.
Charles, we'll start with you with this next question. Fire threat increases have generated recommendations for hardening homes and clearing defensible space. What do you think the city could do to encourage and assist property and business owners in these defensive measures?
Well, yeah, you want to have defensible space. You want to get rid of the fuel. But there's another thing. If homes are built too closely together, then it'll be very easy for fires to jump homes and spread very rapidly, especially if it's windy. And so that's another issue that we need to look at. And, you know, the fire season, we're just now getting out of it, but in California, the fire season's year round. And it seems to become a bigger problem every year. And we definitely need, I mean, if you go to like Sun River or Century Drive, you see how they clear away all the shrubbery and all the grass and the sticks and the dead wood. And so we need to do that as well. But yeah, and xeriscaping is also an important part of that as well. So yeah, the fire issue is a big issue. Defensible space is a big issue, but I think we're doing a good job on that, and I think we'll continue to do a good job on that.
I think we have less of an issue here than we do in Bend, certainly because we don't have the tall timber we haven't built into a forest like Bend has. But regardless of that, we still have an issue with wildfires, particularly coming from the east. When I came here way back in the early 80s, there was a huge fire that started out, you know, where the dump is now. And if you see all the dead trees between there and 9th Street, that was a huge fire that actually threatened all the industrial area in Redmond. So we do need to clear all the brush as best we can. We need to make sure there's no open burning in those hot summer months anywhere near town. But generally, I think Redmond's in much better shape than most communities. But the brush fire, particularly from the east part of Redmond, remains a significant issue.
So I think one of the things we can do in Redmond, and that we've been particularly good at, is good communication. What it takes to be a fire-hardened home. Some of the things we can do is talk about the type of siding you're using when you're buying or building a home, things that are a little bit more fire resistant. And then the other thing is, of course, landscaping. So xeriscaping and a lower bark mulch use or things against the home. So all of those things we're working with our development partners to try and make basically more fire resistant neighborhoods. And I think that's important because we are building more densely. Again, the east side, that's more county lands, but that's where our fires have all occurred. Even in the last few years, we've seen them out by the airport now towards the east. So we're going to have to be really sure that we're building defensible space around our industrial zones, clearing the grasses, making sure that there's no open burning, and working really hard to communicate those measures. Because what's going to happen with all of the current issues that we're seeing with both the hurricanes and our fires is our homeowner insurance rates are going to go up, and that's going to make housing even less affordable. So a good component is part of that fire hardening, because that will help keep our costs down.
Mayor Fitch, we'll start with you. How will you prepare residents for moving around the city as we see major investments in a number of capital improvements, growing housing and huge events at the Expo Center, increased traffic congestion, demand for services? How do we keep people moving?
Well, I think the goal should be to make sure that people have an alternate route east and west. Instead of going through the middle of town, battling through those traffic lights, either Evergreen or Veterans Way. So the east side alternative route that we're currently building is going to tie in Airport Way all the way from U Avenue up to Maple Avenue in one major arterial that will make a big difference. That way you can go over to the Maple Avenue Bridge and get into the east side, anywhere on the east side without having to go through the middle of town. From Southwest Redmond, you'll be able to go through the U Avenue and then be accessing anywhere. Long term, I think we can establish a beltway between Helmholtz on the west, 9th Street on the east, and a new interchange south of U Avenue that will tie in the large lot industrial on the southeast side to Helmholtz and Canal on the west side, and either have Maple or even a new interchange at O'Neill Junction, have a beltway so people can circulate much more easier than going through the middle of town. And that will make a big difference, because when you go to Bend and try to go east-west, it's not very pleasant.
So again, the roadway projects are all things in plan and things that as a council, we have agreed would be good to do. They won't be immediate, they won't happen tomorrow, which is what we probably want to know about all the fairgrounds and the events that go on out there. Some of the things that have happened recently that work really well in working with the county and our fairground partners is creating alternative shuttle sites that people can park at and shuttle to the fairgrounds for the events. Having those extra traffic kind of calming measures now worked really well this year for some of our bigger festivals. So until we can get the east side arterial, until we can get the roundabouts going, until we can find that pot of money for transportation, those are some of the simpler things we can do, and then communicate really well with the public about when those events are and their alternative routes of transportation. And I do believe that east side arterial and going through Veterans and Evergreen Way will be a huge savings, because I've snuck out that way myself without the improvements in, and it's much faster. So that will be a good thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with Kat and Ed. I'd also like to say that not only do we need to look at that, we also need to look at parking. Parking is going to be a big issue here in downtown Redmond, and we need parking garages, and we need, you know, if we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to charge people for parking, and I know people get really upset when I say that, but it's just a fact. And so that's another aspect to this issue that we have to realize is coming, and hopefully get ahead of that. Thank you.
Councilor Zwicker, we'll start with you. What ideas do you have to build housing that is affordable for those who have grown up in our community?
So I think one of the best things we're doing right now is the public-private partnerships. I'm really a fan of housing that can be purchased. And so in tandem, we're creating communities that currently Rooted Homes has started one on 19th. They'll do another on Antler, at the Cinder Hollow, and then eventually at North Point. And these are going to be units that are workforce housing that is to purchase. So people can get in and own a home and then take that money and translate it into their next home. They're actually building home ownership, they're building equity. The other thing that I'm enjoying is that we're working with Housing Works and we're getting affordable apartments by there. So while they're initially renting, they can actually be in an affordable apartment where they can save money and work to those next steps. So I think those are some of the best things we can do right now, is create the housing continuum that starts with affordable rentals, that moves into a like-kind payment for housing, and that allows them to move up and go forward, because that's generationally what we have done across this country, is build wealth through owning housing.
What I think we need to do is zone land so that anybody who's going to build houses or apartments in Redmond has to build the majority of those as affordable housing. And not only that, we subsidize housing, the government does. And I think if the government is going to subsidize housing, and it does, then the people who should get the subsidized housing first should be employed people. And so we're building as fast as we can everywhere in Central Oregon. So I don't see how we can possibly build any faster, but that's what I have to say about housing.
So everything Kat said, number one, this council has done a lot of work, but I'll have to recognize our superwoman, and that's Linda Klein. She works tirelessly on getting affordable housing here, on getting grants for affordable housing. I say, just like everything else, it's a team effort, and we have an administration and council all aligned in terms of everything we could possibly do to make sure we get as much affordable housing as we can. But housing is a complex subject. Thousands of homes are necessary here in Oregon. The main problem we have is we have a low inventory of housing, and we also have high interest rates, relatively speaking. If we can get interest rates down, that'll make housing much more affordable for a lot of people who can't afford home ownership right now. So there's market influences that will help. Private-public partnerships, like Kat said, are going to help. Grants are going to help. And I have to give my hats off to all the nonprofits who are working tirelessly to bring affordable housing to Redmond and to Central Oregon.
Charles, we'll start with you. In the future, there will be increased transitional housing for a homeless population near Oasis Village on Highway 126. How do you think the city could work with ODOT to set a new standard for speed limits and to create a bicycle pathway from the city to that space?
Okay, so we're talking about maybe a mile and a half from 97 to Oasis Village, maybe less than that probably. So definitely big sidewalks on both sides of the road. And I think they're creating a new road for just pedestrians. But anyway, that's what I do. And I think that's what they're gonna do. So that would be good. I'm sure we could have some form of bus route to Oasis Village and promote bicycling would be a good idea. But there's a lot of land there right now, which means we're building the roads right now. Well, we should build them, it should be like 3 lanes on each side. So it should be the road we're building now, north of the airport, it should be a 6-lane road because that's what we're gonna need in the future. So we should build it that way. If you look at 97, it's 4 lanes. If they had built it, back in the day correctly, it'd be like 6 lanes. So we need to do that. And we can do that at Oasis Village because there's the land's there. We don't have to eminent domain anybody. So that's what I do.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Question is about future increased transitional housing near Oasis Village. How do we make that safer for folks walking, bicycling, driving in that area?
So ODOT's in the process of building sidewalks, and you've seen it along 126, now Evergreen Avenue, and we'll go as far as the Opportunity Center. Between the Opportunity Center and Oasis Village is a large piece of property that's currently owned by the Central Oregon Irrigation District. They're selling it to Watson Development, Hayden Homes' partner, and Hayden has agreed to put in a multi-use path along that property. Unfortunately, they're not going to close their deal until next November, and COID has said they're not willing to give an easement for that until it closes. So long range, in the next couple of years, we'll see a path all the way out there, separated from the road, and it'll serve Oasis, transitional housing, managed camp, and we do have some bus service, I think, going out there now.
So everything Ed said is very true. When we established Oasis Village, the intent was always to have a multimodal asphalt path, at least up to the Opportunity Center. And again, because we don't have the right of way and own all the land, it does take time, but that is on the books to do. We do have CET and Dial-A-Ride that go stop out there, and believe it or not, a school bus even picks up children that come down from the Juniper and camp beyond there. So another part of the safety is getting a left-hand turn lane into the proposed road that will go back behind Oasis Village and up by 4-3 and the new housing there. And that will actually make it safer to turn on and off 126, and it's critical because right now it is a blind turn and people coming fast down that road don't see you when you're trying to stop. But all those things are in the works. Government moves slowly, so ask for your patience, and we're trying to be as fast as we can.
Mayor Fitch, we'll start with you. Redmond voters are casting ballots about sale of marijuana and use of psilocybin in the city. If voters pass them, how would you regulate and welcome, bring those things into the city of Redmond?
As I've indicated, I think Redmond is a fairly moderately conservative town. I think if marijuana is approved, we should have a small imprint. I would treat them, from my perspective, similar to the liquor stores, having one on the north side and one on the south side. I would not agree with any downtown or on Highland Avenue. I think those would be too impactful. So that's where I think marijuana dispensaries should go if it is approved. Psilocybin centers, I don't see a huge demand for it, but there are situations where it is clinically helpful to veterans who suffer from PTSD. People suffering from depression and anxiety. The clinical studies have shown that that helps. I know of 2 people who have actually been to those centers and who had PTSD from serving in Afghanistan, and who said it's been very, very helpful for them, unlike the other drugs that they were recommended to them. So if voters do approve that, again, I think it would have a lead. Looking at it in terms of time, place, and manner of having a small imprint.
So the marijuana vote is an advisory vote only. It's not saying that we're going to flip a switch and overnight have marijuana dispensaries in Redmond. This is the council asking the public, what would you like to see? The job of the council is the will of the public. I personally am not a fan of recreational marijuana, and so I would have hoped in a perfect world medical would be where we limited it. We had very hard limits, just as the mayor spoke of. But again, I think that it's the will of the people. I'm waiting to see what they say on that. With psilocybin, I think it was another poorly written law. I agree that I'm a practitioner, I love holistic medicine, but psilocybin has been so limited and so overmanaged by our state. It's still a level 1 drug, so federally it's illegal. We're the only state in 50 that allows it. And there's very little oversight for it other than your $10,000 into your class to be a Sherpa and lead somebody through their guided psychedelic tour, and then calling within 72 hours and asking if they're okay. It's $1,800 to $3,000 to walk in the door. It's not covered by insurance. I don't see how it helps our veterans and people with PTSD if they need to use their insurance because they can't afford to get it. So I'm not a fan, and I don't support something that was that poorly written.
So I think that the voters of Redmond right now and in the next couple of weeks are going to approve marijuana and psilocybin mushrooms. And if I'm wrong, that's okay. But I think I'm right. And if I am right, then what the voters are saying is that these things should be legal, and they should be legal now, not in 2 or 3 years. And they should be legal, whatever the market will bear. Ben's got what, 20 dispensaries? So, I don't see how, if the people want it, then they should have it. And I don't see why government should be in the way. And frankly, shrooms and pot are going to be legal in this country sooner rather than later, and all over the world. And this is a great opportunity for Redmond businesses to get in on the ground floor and establish themselves. And so when this change occurs, they'll be in a perfect position to ship this product online through the mail all over the place and make, a substantial amount of money. That's my opinion.
Councilor Zwicker, we'll start with you. Speaking of the November election, there are local bonds and levies on the ballot for the Redmond Parks District and Redmond Schools. Do you support or oppose those measures, and why?
I absolutely support the bond for the Redmond schools. I think it's important that we are good caretakers of the assets that we have in this community. I recognize that we may not have the student population for the high schools like we had initially planned, but buildings can be repurposed and can be used for other things. Maintaining our school buildings and making sure they're in good working condition and they're safe and healthy for the people that work there and go to school there is a priority. And it replaces an outgoing bond, so it doesn't cost any different than what you were currently paying in your taxes. That to me is good math. With the levy, I know that it's lovely to have two pools, and I think it's important that we have options and opportunities for our community, and I think that's going to be personal choice for all of our voters because it is another tax, and right now economically, I think everybody's just looking at their budget, and I think that's how they're going to vote.
Charles?
Well, the voters will determine these issues real soon. And of course, whatever their decision is, I would agree with. But, we need to start thinking about more parks in the outlying areas because we need to make more parks now. And I'm going to talk about a little pet project I have here. I would make a large parking lot at Klein Falls on the north side of the highway, because we could do that real easy now and real cheap. And it's important to have this access for the people of Redmond moving forward into the future. And also more parks like that all over the place. So that's what I would say on that.
I guess I'm all in on the school bond issue. I think it's vital for our community. Redmond High School could be really a hazard to every kid's health if we don't make those improvements, particularly on the HVAC system there. So I'm in total support of the Redmond bond issue. On the Park and Rec, there is a plan B if it doesn't pass. It's not a great option, but they've closed basically the pool that is existing now. They have limited hours on the new pool. So it's up to the voters. I understand I'll call it the dilemma of having more taxes or more services. And so that one, I think is up to each individual owner as to how it's going to affect their pocketbook. The one tax that actually I do kind of like, because it's very, very small, it's 6 cents per thousand for the Deschutes Soil and Water Conservation District. That district is countywide. It does a lot of great work on soil conservation and water conservation. And it's only $2 million it would raise countywide. For a $500,000 home, it would be $60 a year. Again, it's a tax, but I think it's a really money well spent. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles. We'll start with you. As mayor, what would you do to encourage growth and development of businesses and well-being jobs?
Okay, so Ben has a really great tech situation going, and I would encourage tech companies to move to Redmond, and I would encourage the people of Redmond to create their own tech companies. And I've done that a few times, and I've also started something called the Redmond Venture Conference, which is kind of like the Ben Venture Conference on a much smaller scale. So I would try to create a bigger tech community within Redmond. And there's already a pretty good one here, but I think it's going to grow, and I would, help it grow by, shining more of a light on it and focusing more on it and talking more about it and getting people excited about it and getting the community involved with it. And like I said, even the government can participate in this. And so I think that would be the way to go here. And you know, if everybody is on board with this, then it can be, you know, a great experience for everybody. And so I'm very optimistic about the growing Redmond tech community.
Yeah, what would you do as mayor to attract businesses and highly paid jobs?
Well, quite frankly, I don't think we're having a problem attracting people. I mean, they're beating down the doors, so to speak. I think it's at least once a month, a new company we're meeting with that wants to do a major investment in Redmond. I actually prefer smaller companies coming in and growing organically. I think that's healthier for the community with less impact. But we are now starting to get some really large corporations who are looking at Redmond from anywhere from transportation, warehousing, aircraft manufacturing. We're not having a problem attracting people. We're actually beating the door down.
So I think that Ed did actually say that correctly, because Ruddy has been doing an amazing job. So our Redmond Economic Development Department is exceptional. I do think we're going to have to focus on getting some infrastructure down into that large lot industrial, because that is holding up some of our larger corporations. It's a big bite to take with the improvements. But we do have people looking. And then the most important part is if people are coming here and they're bringing those great paying jobs, we're going to have the amenities to keep them with employed people. Because right now, there's no place for anybody to live. Big circle here on the umbrella, but we've got to go back to having that workforce housing and housing for all incomes across the board, so that the workers can afford to live here and find the housing. And then we could go down the list of affordable childcare, good schools, and all the amenities that make this community awesome. So to get and keep good businesses, we actually have to keep being a really amazing community on so many levels. I think that's what we need to do, is keep finding those options for housing and finding those great options for affordable childcare, and so people want to stay and live here.
Okay, we have one more question, and we'll get to our final statements. Mayor Fitch, this one's for you. Describe the Redmond you would like to see in 20 years. What to you is the right balance of growth and stability, change, and tradition?
I think the key thing is making sure our neighborhoods remain intact and are protected. One thing people, when you live in your home, the most important thing is to make sure that the neighborhood around you is safe and it's a place they want to be. Having sidewalks is important, because young kids and seniors, they need safe places to walk. So I think one thing I'd like to see in 20 years is our older part of Redmond having sidewalks, particularly between downtown and the canyon. I think that's important. On transportation, I do think we'll have a beltway system here in Redmond within 20 years that will provide a lot of ease of accessing east-west instead of going through the middle of town. I see our downtown growing in a lot of ways, both vertically and horizontally. And I also see our hospital district being much bigger than it is right now. St. Charles is currently building a $90 million cancer center. It's going to have 300 patients per day. We need to make sure that district is successful for all the specialists that are going to be required because of that center. So Redmond has a lot going for it, and it has a bright future. But like everyone has said, we need to manage that growth and make sure we have the infrastructure so that we have the kind of life that we enjoy now going well into the future. And that was pretty good timing.
Doing great. So 20 years seems like a long time, but it's really just a blink of an eye when we're looking at process. I would really love to see, as we're building further out, either to the east or the west, that we're building complete communities. That includes having markets of choice, or coffee shops, or small businesses, to where when you come home, you don't have to go all the way back downtown. And I say that like we're a huge city, but when we're talking about the strain and the stress of transportation and multiple trips, people want to go home. They want to pick up their kids from their local school or their daycare provider. They want to grab milk at the market. They want to get dinner on the stove. They want to play in the park. And I think it's important to have those complete neighborhoods as we go forward and not just become a sea of houses with everything we own centrically. I love our downtown corridor and I want to keep it as friendly as we can, but we also need to have those different options when we're home. And then I think the Beltway will be something that we will be seeing in the 20-year infrastructure, because it is the way to move around and through Redmond without creating more traffic problems and probably more water conservation. I'd like to see us learn how to do reclaimed water out of our wetlands and utilize that in other ways. Thank you.
So when I look towards the future of Redmond, I see a great community that is just like it is now, only bigger. But Redmond's great. It's awesome. I can't think of anything wrong with it. And it's just a great place. And so 20 years from now, it's going to still be a great place, and it's going to be a better place. Redmond gets better every year, every decade, and the sky's the limit for this town. And it's just it's kind of weird how awesome Redmond is and how the potential for this town is. It's just going to be through the roof. So when I look at Redmond in 20 years, I see just the greatest city in the world. And I'm just very excited to be here and to be part of that and to help build an even better city. It's awesome when I look into the future to see what's in store for Redmond.
All right, thanks. We'll move on to closing remarks. Councilor Zwicker, you'll get to start, and you have 2 minutes.
I already started at the beginning. Closing remarks. I think you can see that everybody up here loves our community, and there's a lot that we have going on. So we are looking at not just fixing it in the next 2 years, but we are talking the next 20, 30, 40 years. And there are going to be big projects all along the way. So I feel like through the teamwork and the work I've done in the council, I'm prepared to lead all those forward. I'm going to be your best advocate for housing and growth, because I do that all the time with real estate across the state. So I feel like I know a lot of different options there. And I do believe that when we go forward to transportation, we will be lobbying the legislature with a lot of hard work. We might get some forward momentum, but there will be things we will be doing in the future to kind of find funding here at home and make our road improvements more under our control. So I think I'm the best candidate moving forward, so I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
I want to thank Ed and Kat for running for mayor. I think they've got a lot of great ideas, and they've done just a fantastic job for this town. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this town hall. You guys do a great job all the time, and it's very important, the job you do. And I think we all appreciate that a great deal. And I want to thank Tim Trainer, not just for emceeing the show, but for having an awesome newspaper that really has some great journalism. And the Redmond Spokesman is such a great paper, and Tim does such a great job. I just want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It's great to see you guys. You guys care, okay? You're interested, you care, and that's great to see. It's inspiring and it's motivating to see a community that really pays attention and wants to know what's going on. And so thank you for coming. And I just love being up here on the mic. But I just want to thank everybody, and I just want to say that it's been an awesome campaign. It's been great to be up here with Ed and Kat and everybody. So thank you very much.
Charles did a great job of thanking everybody, and I echo that. Thank you to the league and Tim. And thank you all for coming tonight. As Charles said, you all have a large heart for the future of Redmond. And my passion, even after all these years, is as high as it could be, because I have 3 young grandchildren who live just a blocks from here, 6, 4, and 2. And I want to make sure they have a community that my boys were able to grow up in. One that has that small town charm, but has also opportunity. Because if communities don't change and provide opportunity for their young ones, communities will go on the wrong side of the equation. We need to have a community that's thriving, that's changing, that's growing, that provides those opportunities for our young children to stay here and to get good jobs and to raise their families. And so if we do it right, if we provide the infrastructure, we work on the housing, we help the homeless get into a safe location, I think we'll do our job. And it's not a 1-year job, it's not a 2-year job, it's not even a 10-year job. It's a job day in, day out, by anyone who's on council, by anyone who is mayor. And I think that's what you see a commitment from the 3 of us, and you see a commitment from those who are running for city council. Day in, day out, we are gonna work hard to make sure Redmond is the best it can be going forward. So thank you, and vote early and vote often, but please vote.
All right, let's give a round of applause for our Just a reminder that your ballot probably is out of the mailbox and sitting on your kitchen table by now, so don't forget about it. Make sure it is returned, postmarked by Election Day, which is November 5th, so your voice can be heard. More information about all the candidates is at vote411.org. Thanks once again for everyone for participating, and appreciate you coming out.